Welcome to Weekend Night Live, hosted by Samuel Jacobs Abbey, where we play music, talk shows, and interviews on Be Inspired Podcast Network. Stay tuned and keep your dial on www.beinspiredpodcast.com. Don't forget to stay connected, be inspired, be unique, and be different.
The west coast of the U.S. Good afternoon, and it's time for us to tune up on our relationships and marriage. So here we are, another month, and we're happy to have you listening to us. My name is Richard Crabbe. You just heard my bride, Vivian, lead us in prayer. And our topic for tonight is I am tired. And of course, other statements that people make about their relationships or marriage. Have you felt like giving up on a relationship or calling it quits on your marriage? Do you sometimes feel like nothing will change in your marriage despite all your effort to make things work? Do you feel that you are the only one trying to keep your relationship alive and exciting? Are you experiencing cycles of good times followed by tension? Are you exhausted by what has happened or is happening in your marriage or relationship? As you think through all these questions, let's add one more. How can one breathe fresh life into a relationship or marriage? Most of you already know today's seminar will discuss I am tired and other similar statements we sometimes make about a relationship or marriage. So let's dig in. First thing to consider is, why are you tired? Why do we feel tired about this relationship, about our marriage? It could be the result of different things. Some of us are tired because we're disappointed. This is not what I imagined or expected. You married or you got into this relationship with all kinds of expectations. I had the idea of how things would go, but it hasn't happened, and you are disappointed. This is not the man I thought he was. This is not the woman I expected her to be. Then there are those who are disillusioned. What do we mean? The promises that someone made to you. Oh, this wonderful man, this wonderful woman, all the promises they made, or maybe most of them, failed to materialize. You're disillusioned. Is this really what marriage is about? I don't think I want this. Is this what being in love is? Or maybe you know. Then there are those who are in despair. They feel tired because they are in despair. What do we mean? When you are in despair, your hopes have been dashed or maybe crushed. Your hopes are crushed. You had hopes of a better life. You know, maybe as some people do, they get married to get out of a situation where things weren't going too well, and they had hopes of this wonderful life with the person they love. Those hopes have been dashed by the realities that they have gone through or may be going through. For some, their desires have been crushed. This is what I wanted to happen. This is what I was looking for. This is what and they're just simply distraught. Nothing you say seems to make sense to them. Sometimes when we're talking with people like that, nothing seems to be getting through. Whatever you say, they come up with something that hasn't happened for them, that they would have liked to happen. Desires crushed. For others, they're simply tired of all the disrespect that their partner or spouse has been showing them.
This is King Richard the Lion-Hearted, Twinkie Wink.
Their opinions, wishes are ignored, opinions thrown out or rejected, sometimes even belittled. And so they've come to the point where they're asking, why am I even in this? There's disrespect all around. Sometimes the disrespect may not even be from the partner or even the spouse. Sometimes the disrespect may be either from, friends or even family. And so they're simply tired of having to deal with the disrespect. And in practice, how do some of these things play out? For some, you may be going through recurring fights. What we mean, over and over. This week something happens. Next week something else. If something doesn't happen today, you even brace yourself. You're expecting that something will happen, tomorrow. You can't seem to go through a week or a few days without some fight. Sometimes over the smallest of things. Why did you put the towel here? Or, why did you fight? And you wonder, when will all these stop? I'm just worn out. For some, it's repeated bad behavior. We've talked about it, somebody might say, we've talked about it several times, Uncle Richard, Auntie Vivian, but she keeps doing it. He keeps doing it. Bad behavior. It could be in the form of insults. It could be in sometimes cursing, sometimes ignoring the person's needs. And the needs don't have to be emotional needs. Sometimes it's just being courteous to someone. For some, repeated bad behavior is poor habits. They just want to do things their own way and they don't care what you think. And so you're tired of having to repeat the same things to them over and over again, For some, it may be because agreements or resolutions on how things could improve are not followed or carried out. And sometimes it's by one partner, but there are times also when both partners do not play their part. He's waiting for her to do something, she's waiting for him to do something. So, it happens. And they both complain, and we're tired. My friends, the fatigue or exhaustion that sets in from all these relationship issues is often the result of what we describe as a no end in sight feeling that creeps in, takes hold of us after yet another fight or slight, as in disrespect, a misunderstanding, or argument. We may not voice it, but mentally we actually say it. Not again. I don't have the energy to go on. The reason is that the human body and mind have limits as to how much tension they can or will tolerate and long they will do so. So what may start as a misplaced word or hurtful action, or maybe even an omission or an ignored request, can escalate. The fact is that a person cannot live healthily being in a state of heightened alert or anxiety, which is what these disappointments and despair and recurring fights tend to make our bodies feel. You can think of being in a situation, and those of you who have been or are in those situations can readily identify with this. At work, everything is great. The moment it's time for you to close, you walk out to the parking lot, or if you're picking the train or bus, the moment you're out of your office and the thought hits you, I'm going home, your body even begins to react. As someone said some time ago, the moment I left my office, got to the car, opened the door and sat in, the thought just hit me. I'm about to go to the lion's den. How sad. Married person going back to the person they felt they loved and had pledged their lives to, now thinking, I'm going into the lion's den. Because the body can't take that anxiety forever. And so the words then come, I am tired. When these actions are repeated over and over, especially despite or regardless of the expressed concerns of a partner, any of the D's we've talked about sets in: disappointment, disillusionment, despair, being distraught, disrespect. They just set in. Nobody is built to go through this over a long period of time. The question then is, how does a couple who enter into a relationship or marriage with high hopes and expectations of a wonderful life with the love of their dreams get to this stage? In our experience, this ministry over some 30 odd years, we have observed, and also, social scientists, psychologists, and actually the Bible does support that these behaviors, actions all start with a mindset. All of this is based on a mindset. We can actually drill down everything to a mindset. Mindset. How your mind is set. And anything that is set is fixed. In other words, how your mind is fixed and what is fixed in that mind. The reason is, it's so simple. Our minds guide our thoughts and actions. Anything we do, whether it's cooking, whether it's dressing, whether it's speaking, everything we do. Now, it's our mindset that gives rise to our attitudes toward anything. And here I'm not talking attitude like you hear, the modern usage or slang, as in he's giving me attitude, she's giving me attitude. We're talking about attitude as to the posture, the position we take concerning anything, such as respect, kindness, thoughtfulness, and caring. All of these are behaviors that arise out of a mindset and the attitude we have toward the person. In the same way, pride, wickedness, rudeness, yes, they also arise out of the attitude that we have towards someone. So our attitudes then drive our actions. So mindset gives rise to attitude. The attitude drives our actions, such as, I don't care what happens, because your attitude is, whatever happens, let it happen. Where did that come from? Your mind's made up. I'm not willing to invest anything more in this relationship. You are all but out. So you freeze. Nothing more. I don't care. Let him do what he wants. Let her do what she wants. Let him say what he will. Let her say what she will. I'm going to do nothing. And so, from mindset, you have attitude. The attitude gives rise to our actions. And then, my friends, it's repeated actions that become a habit. So then, he's nasty to her over a while. He can't even say something nice after a while, because he's so used to being nasty. And what about her? She's also used to replying nasty to him. So, over time, two people in love move from I love you to I can't stand you. And that's only one step away from I hate you. So mindset, attitudes, actions, habits. Our habits then determine our behavior in any situation. And these become automatic because we're relating to each other all the time. He screams, for example, and she cries. So what happens? Anytime he screams, she's going to cry. And what about the other way around? She screams and then he recoils, sometimes annoyed or angry, ready to strike. You know, the word recoil, it comes from the word coil, as in spring. So when somebody recoils and they're withdrawn, it doesn't mean they have nothing to say. And often we hear in discussing with couples, oh, I kept quiet for the sake of peace. But you and I know that keeping quiet is just like recoiling. The spring is winding. Given the right trigger, it's going to hit back and hit hard, just as a spring does when it finally uncoils and is set free. You see, it's what the counselor Greg Smalley describes as the dance in conflicts. As in a dance, either partner anticipates the action of the other person and responds to it. So when partners in a relationship aren't getting on well or things begin to go downhill, either person anticipates what the other will do and is ready to pounce or to react. I know, when he comes home, he's going to flare up. Let him flare up. So, she's ready. And yep, predictably, he comes, he sees what he doesn't like, he flares up, and guess what? She's ready. The dance is on. No? She's got the words to use. She knows some psychologists or counselors will call them behavior triggers. But it's more than just a trigger. They're actually in a dance. It's only that this is...
I'd rather go to the radio then.
No? And that's what we all need to be aware of. The pattern will continue so long as either person is involved in the dance. So instead of communicating on the issue that's upsetting one person, no, conflict takes over the communication. Instead of speaking about something and resolving in loving manner, to lie about it takes over loving. Why do we say lie? Because we make it seem as if everything is okay, but we're lying to ourselves, and we know it. For some, it's a falsehood that takes over facts.
Because when they call, then you hear when people get into it, I don't like to hear.
Do not do the right things, hoping that our partner will not find out. So, what then happens? Our habits become behaviors. Over time, the behaviors become a lifestyle. The couple have gone from loving to fighting. What happened? Times when we meet with couples, you have to walk with them backwards in time so they get to the point where they can understand this is how we got here. Wasn't that one statement he made or that one action she took that got them, that got you to the point where you're now tired and you want out. It has developed over time. That's, and we need to understand that. But, brothers and sisters, my friends, it ought not to be so. As we said last month, none of us marries to be miserable. This is not how it should be. But some of you are saying, our marriage is great. Everything is great. Praise the Lord for you. Enjoy it. But I do remember a proverb my mom shared with me. It says, if you have a beard and you see somebody's beard on fire, fetch some water and put it beside you. You never know when your beard will catch fire. In other words, it's important to learn a few things to make sure yours doesn't go that way. And there's another one that says, if you're walking behind, if you're passing by and you hear someone giving good advice to the child, it helps to stop and listen. You might learn something from it for your own child or for yourself. So, how can we deal effectively with this tiredness that we sometimes feel in our relationship? The interesting thing is that at some point or other, within a relationship, within a marriage, one or both people might even feel they have made a mistake. So what do we do? The first thing is to acknowledge that this is where we are. We've got to the point where things aren't right between us. You see, for those of you listening who are charismatics, you have learned to reject things and to deny things, but I might disappoint some of you. Denial is not an act of faith. If your marriage is bad, it's bad. And until you acknowledge that it's bad, you won't deal with what is bad about it. To simply confess, my marriage is great, will not make it great. You have to work at it. It's not automatic. If you are facing abuse in your relationship, to wake up every day and to confess, my relationship is great, doesn't take away the abuse. The abuse has to be acknowledged, confronted, and dealt with. That's what I mean. I am a person of faith, just so you know. Until we are prepared to acknowledge that something exists, it can't be dealt with. You can be in a room where there are mosquitoes, and you'll be having bites all over your body. Until you acknowledge that there are mosquitoes in the room, you will not take precautions not to be bitten by those mosquitoes. By denying or saying, I shall not be bitten by mosquitoes, it will not get the mosquitoes away. That's what I'm talking about. And my friends, it doesn't matter how you got where you are. Whatever the reason for the present state of your relationship and how you feel, whether it's your fault or your foolishness, whether it's your ignorance or innocence, it is important for us to acknowledge first to ourselves. In any case, we feel it. And then we help to deal with it. If we don't acknowledge it, sooner or later, it will be found out. And guess what? There's two of you in the relationship. At least someone knows things aren't right. So it does not help that we don't acknowledge what exists. And we'll look up, we'll look in a few moments at why sometimes we don't do so. So first of all, let's acknowledge that things aren't what we would like them to be. Things aren't right. The next thing is to seek help. There is another proverb. No one drinks medicine on behalf of a sick person. If you have malaria, you take the anti-malaria tabs. No one can take those on your behalf for you to get well. You need the treatment yourself. The problem is that sometimes we seek help in the wrong places, but sometimes some people don't at all. So why don't you like to seek help? Why don't some people like to seek help? Why don't we sometimes help? Here are a few reasons. We don't seek help or like to seek help sometimes because we're embarrassed. Because of embarrassment. Maybe we think people will not respect us as they do now. Maybe you're an elder. Maybe you're you're the person everyone respects in your family. Even the older folk look after you and all that. And now you're going to have to seek help for somebody to know, her marriage isn't going well, Simply put, that's pride, the wrong kind. And things will get worse now in that department. Guess what? If the marriage or relationship collapses, now that's going to be the real embarrassment. So doesn't it make sense to seek help? Sometimes we don't seek help because of pride, as I said. And pride can range from, what can anyone teach me? So you know everything. So why are you not doing it? Pride can play out in asking questions like, do you know what happens in their marriage? I mean, you're saying I should talk to this person. Do you know what's going on in his house, in her marriage? Oh, if you know, tell us.
What did you say?
And then, as I said, some people say, I know what to do. What else are they going to tell? I know all these things. So, let's do it. This is important for us. We can't continue doing things the way we are and expect that our relationships will improve. Some people do not want to seek help because somebody else will know and they want to protect their partner. We said things like, his position in the community, her position in church. Oh, really? So you're protecting that person to continue abusing you, to continue doing what is wrong? And for some people, those who have children, for example, you want this person to continue psychologically harming your children by keeping them or by having this kind of environment that is teaching them wrong about marriage. We've heard things like, he's the father of my children. She's the mother of my children. And I don't want people to think badly of him. The guy is doing bad stuff anyway. She's not doing the right stuff anyway. So what are you protecting? What you're really protecting is not the person, but the wrong things they're doing. Think about that. And consider also that the help you seek will benefit all concerned, both abuser and the victim. Then sometimes also, this is one of the saddest things we've noticed over many years, some people don't seek help because they enjoy the attention of being seen as the victim. Sounds a bit strange. Let me explain. So if you're the victim, what happens? People sympathize with you. You might even get some people who empathize with, sister, I've been there too. My brother, you are not the only one suffering, or, they might say, Some might pray with you. Pastor calls you and prays you. So how are things at home now? You love the attention. And so you don't really want to make the effort to make things different, to really seek help. It's only wonderful letting people know what you're going through, but it's not really a seeking of help to make things different. I hope you understand the difference. It's not just telling people what you're going through, it's actually seeking help to make things different. So consider, you're married or in a relationship with the same person you allow others to diss. So who's being smarter here? You're married to the person. You're in a relationship with the person everybody else is looking down upon or looking at in a strange way when he or she walks into the fellowship or church, or sometimes even in some party or gathering somewhere. People who do this, enjoying being having the attention or being seen as a victim, they love sometimes to see the partner on the defensive, while they hide or cover up their own role in what has led to this state of the relationship. See, everybody knows what you've told them. They don't know what you've contributed to the situation being what it is. Then there are those who are also comfortable with the dance, And a couple of years ago, we came up with this phrase of some people being comfortable in their misery. You've heard us say it before. They're comfortable with the dance, because doing something different quite often means change. Some people are also set in their ways. Not only their mind is set, their ways are set. They don't want to do something different. It's him. He should change. If he changes, things will be okay. Oh, if only my wife would do X, Y, Z, we would have a fantastic life. And then we ask the question, so what will you do to make your relationship better, to make things improve? For some people, the work they have to put in to make things different is too hard. They would rather keep things the way they are. They make themselves comfortable with the dance. Yours may be only one thing you might have to change, but you know what? It could be the real obstacle to progress in the relationship. There are also those who don't want to seek help, or those who refuse to seek help because they're disappointed with previous attempts to resolve the issues. I think we've discussed before on this program that talking about something is not the same as resolving it. So I've told him many times, or I've told her many times, or we've talked about it several times. Does not necessarily mean you really resolved it. Really resolving something involves coming up with practical solutions to which both partners commit and carry out. So telling me you don't like the way I talk does not mean I know how to talk differently. Telling her you dislike this does not mean she knows what to do. Or telling her you have to do it this way doesn't mean she really knows how to do it. Some of you are wondering, what do you mean? Because we've actually heard people say, oh, but he's an adult. Do I have to spell it out? Hey, if you have told him, and he's an adult, like you're saying, and he's not doing what you expect him to do, why don't you find out how he understood what you want him to do? Rather than, I am tired. I can't tell him anymore. You see, resolving the issue is not for one person. It's for both. Being disappointed with previous attempts sometimes arises because there has been a one-sided intervention, such as sometimes from someone we highly respect, maybe a pastor or an elder, a parent or relative, who talks to the couple or with the couple, but then one partner feels, they came and everybody was on my case and it looked like, I was the only one to do something different, and everybody was speaking for him or everybody was speaking for her. It's one-sided. So now, no, I'm not telling anybody anything anymore. And especially for those of us who are parents on this program, just hear me out. Parents often make very poor counselors for their own children. In a marriage, in a relationship, parents need to be careful what they say to their children. It's the same principle for doctors or surgeons not being allowed to perform surgery on their own family. He will be biased. It's not a matter of we can be biased. We will be biased. It's natural. However objective we want it to look like. And maybe we won't be biased on behalf of our child. Could be to the other person. And how will our child feel? This is why we encourage parents, even if they're counselors, to recommend other counselors they can trust to their own children. Sometimes some people are disappointed by interventions or previous attempts because, as we said, one partner has failed or sometimes actually outrightly refused to do things differently, such as maybe accommodating a partner's feelings or viewpoints, on a decision. Then for some people also, being being disappointed with previous attempts has come from, or then leads them to say, I've moved on. They've lost hope because there hasn't been lack of progress. They've lost hope. Some have got to the point that they have concluded nothing will work. So there's no need to seek any help. Nothing will work. You don't know my husband. He won't change. My wife, you don't know her. Of course you don't know the person. You do. But as we often say, when you cage somebody, where do you think you will find them? When you have caged someone, where do you think you will find them when you're looking for them? In the cage. Nowhere else. Unless you let them out of the cage, they will remain in the cage. What do we mean? If you decide this person will not change, will you even see the efforts they make? You won't. Because maybe you also love seeing them in the cage, putting them on the defensive. So what do we then say? Seek help, do so from a counselor. We've heard us say it before. You want to go to somebody respected that both of you will listen to, but it should be somebody who can really help you, not simply because he's an older person or a more, religious leader or something. Is this person really going to work with you? And the reason we say so is that often people are at the point where they are tired, exhausted about what's happened in the relationship or what's even still ongoing. You need someone who will walk the journey with you. It's not somebody who will simply sit and talk with you and tell you, do this, do that, and advise you. That's not counsel. Counseling brings you to the point where you see your role in what's happened. And both of you get to the point where you know exactly what to do. And like Moses said before the Israelites, the counselor sets before you life and death. Life for your relationship, death for it. And it's your choice to make, not for the counselor to tell you go and do X, Y, Z. We can be very lazy and have a pastor or some influential person in our lives tell us what to do. When it doesn't work, what do we say? Well, I did what he said. I did what all that pastor said I should do, I've done. All that my uncle said I should do, all that this person said I should do, I've done. It doesn't work. So it's not you, them. It's what they told you. This is why we have to acknowledge and own the things for ourselves. This is important, working with somebody who will professionally help you through, somebody who will have the time to work with you through it, because, as I said earlier, sometimes it's important to go back in time to understand what caused the present situation. I learned this from some ladies in nursing the other day. Say sometimes you have to do a debriefing. You're wondering what that is? When a wound dries up, the top of it dries up, but the wound is still inside, you have to, we talk in everyday terms, you say, oh, you scratch the surface. It's not scratching. You actually have to clear the whole surface of the wound. Some of you may have suffered that from your moms growing up, or your grandmas. You have to really clear the face of the wound. In other words, bear the wound. Let the wound be clearly seen, and then you administer the medication. You debrief. Sometimes that's what we have to do, to really go back. Because by the time we say we're tired, for many of us, we have covered up sometimes years of pain and hurt. And those have to be uncovered, exposed, so that God's light can shine on them, so that the right treatment can be given. And when we seek help, we have to commit ourselves to do things differently. In one word, change. Some people are actually scared of the word change. You mean I have to be different? We're not saying you have to be different. You're yourself, but you have to do things differently. You don't want to? Well, let me ask you. So far, what you have done hasn't worked. If you are at the point of, I am tired. So if what you've done so far hasn't worked, doesn't it make sense to change? To do things differently? There are a few things doing things differently will involve. Then we will have your questions. Changing involves first a change of mindset. The mind that was set needs to be changed. Yes, we call it a mental switch, a mind shift. We go from a mindset to a mind shift. We have to shift our minds. Some of us, for example, grew up hearing, watch men, don't trust men. So you're married to this wonderful person you love, but you are distrusting him, and in a way, you are undermining your own decisions that you're taking together with him, because years ago, as a little child, you began to hear the phrases, don't trust any man. See what I mean by you have to shift your mind? So you have to shift your mind from not trusting any man to perhaps I need to trust this man. Let me give him a chance. Maybe I need to show respect to this woman. You grew up not respecting women, seeing men disrespect women. That's how you treat women. Then they will fear you, and then they will obey you, and then they will do things right. But you're miserable. Your wife isn't taking it. You are not taking it. So why don't you do it differently? Shift your mind. It's like throwing a switch. You are in this dark place. The switch is right there. You just need to reach out, flip it, and the light shines in. How does that happen? A change of mindset. The Bible says we renew our minds. How do you renew your mind? Romans 12 verse 2 gives us how we do this. And the reason why this is critical, we'll read Romans 12 verse 2, then we'll see another verse from the Bible that's very helpful in that regard. Romans 12 verse 2 tells us to renew our minds, and this is what it says. Romans chapter 12 and verse 2.
Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
Do not be conformed. Conform means you take the shape off. So what is the shape? Oh, women, women, they are like this. Conform. So you think your wife is like that, you conform, or your fiancé or your partner. Oh, men these days, so your thinking conforms to that. But instead of being conformed, we need to be transformed. To transform means it's a new shape. You take a new form. Trans, across, different. You move from being of a particular conformed to transformed, being totally different. You are no longer in the mold when you are in the same shape as the rest of the world, or as other people say, you are conformed. You think you are so independent minded, but in reality you are conformed. Why? This is what the Proverbs says. Proverbs 23 verse 7. And that's why we need to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Proverbs 23 verse 7.
Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7. For as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you.
There you go. What do we want? In a love relationship, our hearts should be together. So even though we're speaking one thing, the heart says. And as it says, as we think, so we are. So until we have changed our thinking, we will not do things differently. So how does this work? To improve our relationships, then, when we make that mind shift, question is, must you, for example, continue to get angry when your partner or spouse speaks a certain way? Must you continue to get angry, especially when you know it's deliberate? You have to stop the dance. When you stop the dance, your partner doesn't know what to do. You move right, he moves left. If you stop moving right, how's he going to move left? He anticipates you move right, so he's ready to move left. You stop moving right, and guess what? When you stop dancing, the music also will have to stop. The music of your conflicts, your arguments, nasty words, that music will also then have to stop because there's no dance. What does this mean? This is where working with someone who will help you identify the issues is helpful, because sometimes we may be so wrapped up in how we're feeling that we do not think straight. And unless we have the mind shift, we will not do differently. And working with someone sometimes helps bring to our attention things we may have covered up or overlooked or don't even want to think about anymore. And then we'll also say it's important to focus on and encourage each other to do what is right, to affirm even one step of progress, than to focus on what is not going well. It's very easy to remember the 9 things he doesn't do, the 9 things she's failing in, and not to acknowledge the one positive step that he or she has taken. That's out of 10 you had listed. And in encouraging the person on that one positive step and acknowledging it, that could very well energize them to take another step. And whereas it was a 0 out of 10, at least you have 1 out of 10 now. And we can build on it. And encouraging each other or each other to do right includes encouraging ourselves. So how do I encourage myself when I'm already exhausted, I'm in despair, I'm in distraught? One of the ways we can do it is to find people who will encourage us to do the right things and to think aright. What do we mean by this? Remember, we already said sometimes we love to play the victim, people who will take our side. But it's also helpful to encourage ourselves with people who will help us do what is right, however tough it is, who will encourage us to go on. And then there's a particular verse from the scriptures which is very helpful. We will say 2 verses, do not let your past imprison you. Don't let your past imprison you. Yes, things have gone bad. Things aren't good the way they are. But don't let that stop you from having at least a little inkling of hope that things can get better. Let's listen to Philippians chapter 3 from the Bible, Philippians chapter 3 and verse 13. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 13.
Chapter 3, verse 13. Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead, I press towards the goal to the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus.
Well, we haven't made it yet. We are also working on our own marriage. But one thing we're doing, we're not letting our past imprison us. And here, Rob, if you control the way you think about something and someone, whatever it is, or whoever it is, will not have control over you. I'm going to repeat that. If you control the way you think about someone or someone, whatever it is or whoever it is will not have control over you. And so here are some final thoughts. You want a relation that looks and feels like the most amazing thing on earth, you need to treat it that way. But it's tough when things aren't going right. We have to say that one of the hardest decisions you'll ever face in love is choosing whether to walk away or to try again. to make things better. And here's what someone has said. We couldn't find an attribution for this, but it's a lot of good sense. You can't just give up on someone because the situation is not ideal. Great relationships aren't great because they have no problems. They are great because both people care enough about the other person to find a way to make it work. And a couple of things also. This is from Dave Willis, who has a very interesting website we found. He has a blog, actually, Building Stronger Marriages and Happier Families. And he said, there is no challenge strong enough to destroy your marriage as long as you're both willing to stop fighting against each other and start fighting for each other. I love that. There is no challenge strong enough to destroy your marriage. Put relationship there. As long as you are both willing to stop fighting against each other and start fighting for each other. Our natural tendency is that when we become irritable, unable to think clearly, yes, ultimately we're devoid of energy. We're tired. What if we focused instead of using our energies to fight each other, we redirected those energies to finding amicable solutions. So let's give our best to each other. This is from Dave Willis, and I quote, give your best to each other, not your leftovers, after you've given your best to someone else. Surround yourself with friends who will strengthen your marriage, and remove yourself from people who may tempt you to compromise your character. And we will add to give up. Today we heard something wonderful in church. It was just, and Vivian and I were sharing, this will make a very good conclusion to this discussion. This is about Jesus on the disciples in the boat on the lake, and the storm arose, one of the times when they had the storm. This is captured in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. We won't read it for you. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. Like the disciples felt with the storms all around them, sometimes, regardless of all that we do, it feels like the storms in our marriage or relationship do not cease. That's when, like the disciples, we cry out to God, who knows how to deal with the storm and the cause of the storm. As the speaker said this morning, Jesus comes at the point of our desperation. Yes, it does help to appeal to that highest of powers. And so we will ask, as you go through this journey of marriage, who's in your boat? And you feel like all else has failed or is failing, perhaps it's the time for you to cry out to God. Not long prayers. What did the disciples say? Save us. Jesus, save us. 3 words. Maybe that's all you need to shout. God, save my marriage. Give God your storm and make him the captain of the ship of your marriage. That means turning all of yourself and your life. Are you tired? It's time to renew your strength. We would recommend strongly that you turn your attention now and turn that relationship, that marriage, over to the one who can renew your strength, who can renew your mind and renew your hope. It's time to do so. With God's help, your commitment and determination, we trust that you will have a positive story to tell. Come same time next month when we come your way, and to be able to build on after that. God bless you, and thank you so much for giving us your time. We will now hand over to our brother John and to Sammy in the station for your questions. So over to you, John and Sammy. Thank you so much for providing this service for us. And if you're on the line, you can also ask your questions at any time. Thank you so much. That's if you're on the phone line. You can ask your question at any time. And for those of you on phone, I didn't want to interrupt speaking, but you have kids or you are in an area where there's noise, just mute your phone until you're ready to speak or address the rest of us. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sammy and John. Yes, Sammy, you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think my line was muted because I didn't want background noise.
You took what I said so seriously. Thank you. You can unmute and speak. Go ahead.
For the full and the detailed statement and lecture on the being tired in marriage. So many questions have come in. Let me start. One from Daniel Daku, and he says that how do you build trust in a marriage that was built on the foundation of lies? Deep one.
How to build trust in a marriage that was built on a foundation of lies.
That's
right. One of the points we made, and some so that people are not too worried, you can cut out the name and just mention the location, so people might be more comfortable if they're sending you questions. So you can say, this is from Berg, Virginia, or this is from Tajikistan or something like that. That's fine with us. Yeah. Okay. If the marriage is based on a foundation of life, this is where you have to go to the foundation. Why the lies? Why did that happen? Because that's how you can then treat it. The marriage has happened. Why did it have to start on the basis of lies? Was it through fear? Was it, fear that I'll lose him, I'll lose her? What was it? And then it can be addressed, And once we've gone, we said, it does help to speak with somebody who is in counseling and who's willing to do that with you, because sometimes we have to go back in time and really get to the point, why did you have to lie to get married? Were you afraid you lose him, lose her? Now the lie is going to be exposed. And sometimes, you're working with someone like that. You need to get them to the point where they acknowledge what they did wrong and the possible consequences, because then, I've been lied to, we've been married 15 years, 14, now suddenly I'm finding out he has a kid, or she's, and then you can work with it. And like, we said, and the way, the quote we read from Dave Willis, that's why we love it so much, because the way he put it, he said, there's no challenge that is so great that two people work on it. As long as you're both willing to stop the fighting against each other and start fighting for each other, yep, you can overcome that challenge. But you have to get to the point where the reasons for the lying are dealt with. It's not just the foundation. Something caused that to happen. Once those are dealt with, then you begin you begin the repair process. You can't. There's some things you can't simply patch up. You have to destroy that foundation and create a new one. So thanks. Tough question, but this is a short answer to it.
Thank you very much. To that, there is a contribution that came in either in support or just a contribution to what he said. He said most women believe in lies, and without that, you can't win them. You can't win their heart. That's somebody suggesting. What do you think, Mrs. Crabbe?
You know what? It's interesting that some people are saying most women like lies. I've heard women also say that men lie. So in our minds, we think that human beings thrive on lies better than the truth, but it's a total lie.
As we think, that's how we.
Everybody loves the truth. And if you start with lies, you put yourself in trouble. So don't have that mindset that people thrive on lies. Nobody loves to thrive on lies. That is not truth, the bare truth. So aim to tell the truth at all times.
And for those of you contributing, do not encourage statements like most women, most men. Talk about what you yourself know. You don't know most women. You know some. You don't know all men. You know some. That way, that perspective helps everyone listening to be able to understand the issues better. Thank you. Come, go ahead. Or if anyone is on the line who has a question, feel free to ask.
All right, thank you. So let's say that the original question came from New Jersey, and then the contributor also came from Columbus, Ohio. Thank you. All right, so this question is also coming from Springfield in Pennsylvania. And it says that, thank you so much for this thoughtful conversation. I have learned a lot, but I still have some unanswered questions. I have two of them, but let me put one first, and I will come back again to give the second one. My question here is that my wife was the most enthusiastic woman I ever met before we got married. For some reason, I don't know if she used that as a way to get my attention. Now that we have settled and we've been married for the last 6 years, everything Sezi, the word Sezi is gone out of her vocabulary. Now she has become a prayer mama and church, and all the intimacy in our relationship is all gone. I have told her many times what inspires and attracts me, and yet I don't see a change. Mr. Crabbe, I'm sorry to say, I'm tired. Please, what do I do again?
Well, Vivian will also come in here, but you married her as a sexy woman, like you said, but the sexiness gone. Well, you didn't tell us why the sexiness, because that could be, in fact, it's likely once you get to why has the sexiness gone, then you might be onto how it can come back even better than before. You see, has she replaced that with praying? I don't think so. What is causing her to pray so much she doesn't care about it? And, I'm not sure you mean sexiness as in the personality, or you mean sexiness as in relating to sex, as in making love. Because you say it's been replaced by that. You can still pray and be a sexy woman. So, if you're talking about she prays so much or goes to church so much and is neglecting making love with you, that's another issue that also needs to be addressed,
Yeah, you need to find out, if you haven't done that already, why things have changed. So you need to actually talk with her and find out. That's what I will have to say.
And again, it's not just I have told her. You remember in our presentation we said telling the person doesn't mean they will know exactly what to do. So there needs to be a conversation, a discussion, more than just a telling. You said you had a second question. Maybe you come back later with that, Well, Sam, over to you again.
All right, thank you so much. So now let's also go to Albany in New York, and it says that my question may seem funny, but it's very important. My wife and I have been married for 11 years. We have a very active sexual life, but for some reason now, it looks like the energy and the fancy of our sexual life has totally gone cuckoo. And I did suggest to my wife that since we are married couples and we believe in God, there's nothing wrong if we have pornographic things as a way to spike our energy. My wife totally rules this out, and every day our sexual life is draining. So, do you think it is appropriate for Christian believers to use sexual material such as pornographic movies to help enhance our marriage? Thank you.
Well, thank you too. It's not what Mr. Crabbe thinks. It's the reality. We've had this, phrase. Oh, we're using pornographic movies to spice our marriage. We've heard some say, "Oh, we're just married and we're using it to learn." We're going to make it very simple. I think we've discussed this before, but you need to understand what's at work in a movie, and especially one that comes so close to the human relationship. It's a different thing if you're watching Star Wars. Even those have an effect on how we think and behave, all science fiction. But when you're having to deal with human beings and the human body, and especially when you're watching something to apply it to yourself, well, let me tell you how some of this works. And I think some time ago we were discussing this. We had somebody from California came on and he validated what we had been sharing. How does film work? If you want to remember or if you want to do something in a film, what do? You have to remember it. When you remember, what do? You play it back. Where? In your mind. Remember mindset? So, your mind now begins to set in relation to sex on what? The film or films or movies that you watch. Okay. When you want to replicate, in other words, repeat, do something you have seen in the movie, what do? You play back that scene in your, guess right, mind. Okay? So your mind is then taken by the film, the movie, the scene. What happens? So, if you are seeing somebody, let's say the man, since this is from a man doing something to a woman in the film, in the movie, how do you do that? For you to be able to do that to your wife, what do? You're playing that scene in your mind. Okay, this is what he did. And what are you seeing in your mind as you believe you are doing that same thing to your wife? You're playing something else in your mind. Your mind is not even focused on your wife. That's why it becomes a problem. That's why people become addicted to it, because it takes over the mind and begins to guide whatever they do. And we have said that rather than rely on a pornographic movie, yes, your wife might be unwilling to discuss, but that's when you seek help, not from the movie. The movie doesn't talk to you. The movie doesn't explain to you and your wife why she doesn't want to spice up your sex life. But hear this. You said you're both Christians. Great. What is the most powerful creative force in the whole universe, in all of creation, the Holy Spirit. If you both are Christians, I trust you have the Holy Spirit. We are firm believers in the fact that the Holy Spirit who created the tree and that created the lion, who created you and your wife, and who knows both of you better than you do, knows best how you can enjoy your sex life. And it makes sense to ask him to be your teacher, to be your helper, to know the right things to do. Adam and Eve did not watch a pornographic movie. Thank you.
Wow, that's a very, very powerful response. In fact, I have taken note of that and I've written it down because Erica, you said something which caught my attention, and those on the platform are attesting to that. That the fact that you said that if you watch such movies in times of making love, your focus is rather on the movie and not your spouses. I think it's a very powerful statement. Thank you so much for sharing. So many questions are coming in. Another question here, and it says, let me go to the question here. Okay, there we go. So it says the question here is coming from, again, this is coming from Pennsylvania. It's coming from Philly, and it says that thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. My question here is, so it appears that you are trying to resolve a problem of tiredness in relationship, but when you are tired, Mr. Crabbe, let's face it, you are tired. And I don't want to pretend as if that, like you rightly said in the beginning of your statement, you had mentioned that when you fail to recognize that you are tired, then you are just playing a mind game. I think that I am so tired, 21 years of togetherness, and it looks like instead of we growing deeper in love, things are falling apart. When do you permit us to go our individual ways? We separated 3 times and we came back 3 times, but I'm still tired.
Interesting. If you separated 3 times and come back 3 times, why do you keep coming back? There is something there. You see, maybe you are not really working on it. You go your separate ways and maybe you feel that, well, maybe I should try it again. You come back, but you haven't really tackled the issue. You need to really address whatever is causing the tiredness. Whatever is happening is very interesting. If you have gone and come back 3 times, there is something that you know that you need to be together. So you have to work on it. Just saying I am tired doesn't solve the problem. You have to make up your mind that we will work at it. We will make it work. And it can work if you make up your mind that it will work. You need to address the issues. What are the things that are causing the tiredness? Why do you say you are tired? What are the issues? Put them down. Address the issues.
Thank you. I say amen.
Great. Thank you very much. Another question here coming from Columbus, Ohio, and it says that, what about couples which one is insecure to lose the marriage because one partner is more educated and the other financially strong?
Well, we don't know who is educated and who is financially strong, but at least we know one is insecure. So again, the question is, why is the person insecure? You see, it's interesting. The questions coming are talking about they mention specific things, but that's what you deal with. Why is the person insecure? And sometimes we actually put labels on people, but that may not be the issue at all. It may not be that the person is insecure. It may be that the person doesn't trust the partner. So you say, oh, she's insecure or he's insecure. Sometimes we have labeled the person because somebody has said something into our ears. And so we think, oh, he must be insecure. She must be insecure. Let's say the woman is earning more than the man. So, oh, he's insecure. Or, the woman, let's say for some couples, when they started, they were on the same educational level. One person gets more educated, and because they have heard it happened to someone, so, well, now that he's got a master's and I barely made it through high school, he's going to leave me for another woman. Those things happen. Yes, it may not be so much insecurity as I've had this happen. What am I going to do? And the point then becomes, what can we do to strengthen our relationship so that those thoughts, those feelings of insecurity, if indeed they exist, then disappear from the relationship. So for everything we're naming, this is great. If that's the real issue, then ask yourselves the question, why does this exist? And if you do know, for example, that your spouse is insecure, why is the person insecure? Is it because of the education? Why should education make the person feel insecure? If it's money, why should it make the person feel insecure? Could it be that when you earned less, you showed them more respect, and now that you're earning more, you're not showing the person more respect? That may be the point. It may be disrespect, not insecurity. Or perhaps now that you're earning more, or you've been educated more, you talk down to the person. And you are, as sometimes happens in some relationships or marriage, you're now holding up another educated person in front of them. Why are you not like so-and-so? Or you keep making references to another person who may be more educated than they are. And that may be what they're resenting. Not necessarily making them insecure, but they resent it. So when you talk about that person, it actually creates a conflict. So ask the question, why? If you do know, why are you insecure? Or maybe you can actually say, it seems to me, we love that phrase, it seems to me, because that allows you to be proved wrong. It seems to me that, you're having your insecurity about, and you may be surprised at what may come back. It may not be that at all, So have the conversation. Don't just tell the person, I think you are insecure. That's a label. That's caging the person. Whatever they do, you will try very hard to prove your own statement about them. But thanks for asking that. Ask the why question. Don't just label. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is coming from Kenya. And it says that, how do you handle a husband who does not agree with you on many occasions? So, for instance, my husband, anytime there is an issue, shuts down. I have reported him to our marriage counselor. We have met our counselors on many occasions. He will reassure them that everything will work, but yet same thing keep happening, and every time it shuts down. And when you try to even talk to him, he tells you have no time to talk about, excuse my language here, stupid things. How do you person when divorce of course, it's not an option for me. Should I just stay in and suffer, or should I just put my foot and walk out of the marriage? Thank you.
In any relationship, if issues happen and one person shuts down, you have to think about it. Is it how you talk to the person, or is it how you deliver the message? What makes the person shut down? You need to find out. That is, maybe you need to get to the counselors to get into this and see how they can help to find out why he shuts down. Because that is the problem. And if he says that he doesn't have time for stupid things, why does he think they're stupid? What are the stupid things? You need to talk about it. Maybe you need to talk it over with the counselors to see what he actually says and why he says that. You need to find out.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I concur.
Great. And this is in the neighboring country, Rwanda. And it says that my husband just finds delight in talking to his exes. At least I know 4 of them, and we all live in the same neighborhood. So we go to functions or we go to places, you see my husband jokingly and busily engaging these people and just ignores me completely. I have shared tears. I have an open discussion with him. I have spoken to him about it. And at every time, he rather accuses me of being jealous. I told him, yes, I have accepted the fact that I am jealous because I am married to him and not to them. So I deserve all the attention that I needed. But yet, he doesn't see anything wrong talking to Essie. Is it really normal? And Mr. Crabbe, since you've been married for 30 years plus, is this normal? Thank you.
You know, I think your husband enjoys the fact that, you know, you react the way you do when he's doing that. So it's like the dance we talked about. He knows what you will do when he talks to these people. Begin to let him realize that, you know, you are not worried about any of those things. He loves to see you jealous, and you do it very well for him. So he's happy to do that. When you begin to make him realize that, you know what, I'm not bothered about all that anymore. You don't have to say it, but the way you react, change it so that he doesn't see that you are agonizing. They are human beings, anybody. How about you also, as he engages in talking to this man, find someone else and you start talking to people also. Maybe you are not that free, you can't get out to talk with people, but you have to do it. You also, as soon as you see your husband talking seriously with these exes, find other people, you to start talking to people, make him see that you are very happy with whatever you are doing. You are not, but you see who will be bothered. Your husband will be very, very bothered. So maybe that's a solution you can start doing.
Let me also add that to love someone is to be mindful of their thoughts and feelings. Let's not go on each other's feelings or exploit others' feelings. Not right. It's unfair to the person, and it does not mean it does not actually show that you respect your own marriage. If you're married and you're doing things like that, you're tending to focus on your exes. Having said all that, you also have to point out that there's some people who, as Vivian said, they do, similar to what she said, they do things like this, engaging in conversations with their exes. For some people, it's not their exes, the opposite sex, because they enjoy the attention that comes with it. We've known the married people, and they're doing this, and this, well, my wife thinks I'm nobody. Oh, so this is why those people are validating who you are? You know, it's kind of it's not even a wicked way, but it's actually a childish way of trying to prove to yourself that you are still desirable. You know, if your exes are interested in you and all that. And for us, you know, guys, you know, the men, you have to understand this. If you don't know, let me tell you from experience in this kind of work. The very people who didn't want you, you were in just a relationship with them, those same people who may even have dumped you terribly, maybe even with a text message, or even cut you off, right? Sometimes when they just hear that you are going to get married, then you are suddenly desirable. They come into your life. They start finding ways to make you feel guilty. So why didn't you tell me you were going to get married? I didn't even know. And if I hadn't found you on Facebook, and so what? They dumped you. You've got on with your life. Why should you bother now bringing them back into your life? Yes, I hear some of you saying, oh, but we want to remain friends. Yeah, you didn't remain friends then. Why is it that now they want to remain friends? Think about it yourself. It's not a smart way, guys. Let them go. And ladies, you are not immune either. Some of you play dangerous by thinking, oh, it's my ex. We are just friends. Sooner than later, you are telling them your frustrations. The one you married. So let's shout, be careful about these relationships. They undermine the one we have. Let's keep and cultivate, grow the one we have, and deepen that relationship. John, you're on the line. If you have a question, you can also ask. I think somebody might be driving or in a train. You hear the wind very strongly on the mic. If you are in that, please mute your phone. Thank you very much.
I mean, nobody has any questions so far. I'm still here, but the questions that are coming out, yeah, there's good and perfect questions.
Okay, John, thank you so much. Sammy, over to you.
All right, so this one is coming from Kumasi, and he says that, so when is
it Kumasi, Ghana, or Kumasi, Ivory Coast?
No, Kumasi, Ghana. And he says that when is a marriage over? I know both. I've listened to your show. I've gone through the Be Inspired website. I've listened to every single topic that you've handled on marriage, and I know the answer I am going to get, but I still want to ask, because sometimes it's good to ask, when is a marriage over? And I am ready to follow the advice you give, because one foot is out, other is in. I am just marking time to pull the other one out, and I'll have my freedom for the rest of my life. What do you think? When is a marriage over?
I'll make it simple. You already know the answer. I wish you had told me what you thought I was going to say. I didn't know you could read our minds. But maybe I'm going to disappoint you. So tell me if I disappoint you or I was on point. You know exactly what you thought. But a marriage is over when one or both of them end it. That's all. That's all. So long as it's not ended, there's still hope. There's still some life in it. That's all I'm going to say.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so let's come to the state of Virginia here. And this is from Manassas. And it says that my mother-in-law moved in with us 2 years ago. And I just love my mother-in-law. She's just an awesome woman. She has given me all the needed support. But the agreement for her to be with us was just for 6 months, and it's been 2 years. Naturally, she hasn't done anything wrong with me, but I personally believed in just a simple nuclear family. I've discussed this with my husband a couple of times, and I've told my husband that I don't really want to live with my in-law. Anytime I bring up the matter, my husband tends to say that if it is your mother, will you say we should ask her to leave the house? But that wasn't our original agreement. How do I proceed without causing third world war?
And your answer, what was your answer to your husband? If he hasn't been your mother, would you let her go? Yes. I wouldn't want to be with my mother all the time. So
if you can't answer yes to that, then we got a problem.
Yes.
But go ahead.
So you give him the answer. If you wouldn't want your mother also to be in the house, so be it. That, we agreed on 6 months. Why did you not stick to the 6 months? Why is it now 2 years? If she has decided if he has decided that his mother should be with you all the time, why? What is she doing there? How about maybe finding a solution? Maybe find a place for her so that she'll be on her own, so that you can visit and do things with. Maybe if she's strong enough and maybe she's working, she's doing something on her own, she can be on her own, find a place for her. But stick to the agreement. We agreed on 6 months. Why has it changed? You need to find out. You need to talk about it with your husband. And if he asks the question, if it were your mother, would you say she should go? Give him the answer. If it were your mother, would you want her to go? Then let him know. And if it were your mother and you wouldn't want her to go, then your mother-in-law can't go either.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me see here. Okay, so this one is also in the same state of Virginia, but it is coming from Richmond. And it says that what is the end goal for Christian marriages when it comes to having a financial healthy marriage? I'm asking this because I strongly believe that money makes all things possible. But my wife thinks that money is not everything. How do we reconcile this? Because when I see money, I go for it. The ethical way, though, I work so hard. I'm a practicing lawyer. I spend a lot of time to make a lot of money. But my wife thinks that it is not about the money. How do we reconcile this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sammy, what was the very first sentence? I think that there is something embedded that will help.
Sure. So the very first sentence, it said, what is the end goal for Christian marriages when it comes to having a financially healthy marriage?
Right. Okay. So, it's not very clear. I don't see any end goal for Christian couples except for them to be able to provide for themselves and the whole family, and of course to be able to give to the word of God, since to the work of God, since we're talking about Christians here, to help to give to the work of God to help others. It's not just for themselves. So that's just in a nutshell. I wouldn't even say that's the goal, but that's why we have money. That's why we work. But in, some of the statements, like my wife thinks, money is not everything, things like that. I'm a lawyer, I work very hard and all that. Could it be that the hard work is taking away something from the relationship? And that's what she's really getting at. It's worth finding out, because she may be pointing at something that you might be missing. So it's not, you haven't said she doesn't want you to make money, but she says it's not everything. So what is missing? If it's not everything, what should be there in addition to the money that is not there? I think that's something to find out. And I'm just getting the niggling feeling that perhaps the hard work to make more money, might be taking away from the relationship between the two of you, and perhaps the rest of the family if you have kids.
I agree with your wife that money is not everything. And truly, money is not everything. There is a quotation in Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verses 10 and 11 tells us that he who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver. In other words, he who loves money. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. So what profits have the owners except with their eyes? If you love money, you will never be satisfied. You always want more. You smell money everywhere, and you want to go for it. And in the end, you realize that maybe you are neglecting your family in certain ways. And what does it profit you if you gain all this and you don't even enjoy it? And your children and your wife are not happy.
Thank you. So have that discussion. What does she think is missing? Since you're a lawyer, I think you're good at finding out from the witness and cross-examining the witness when they make their statement. Thank you, and we wish you all the best as you have this discussion.
Thank you very much. So, a couple of questions here before we wrap up. Another question is coming. Let's go here. So this is coming from Ukraine, and it says that, let me pull what it says. Okay, there you go. It says, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Crabbe, for sharing your this experience with us. I totally appreciate that. My question to you is that, what do you think you need to do as a couple to get from where you are to where you want to be without without hurting each other? In other words, how do you address hurt in your relationship and in marriage whilst you keep loving each other? Thank you.
Thank you so much. How do you address hurt? For those who are now getting into marriage, start developing transparency even before you get into marriage. Learn how to be open, honest, and plain. You're already married and you don't have that, develop it. It brings a world of difference. There is no room, or almost no room, for suspicion or doubts or anything, because either partner, either spouse can bring up an issue or and say something, and the other person isn't thinking something else or trying to read between the lines, as we say, because you have an open, honest, plain relationship. This is critical. And also to create an environment in your home, within your relationship, where everyone has a voice and every voice is respected. It starts with husband and wife, or it starts with friends. Two people who fall in love become partners, fiancés, before you get into, if you're in marriage, it's not late, you can begin to do it, okay? And the trouble is that some people may have been scarred already, or some people may have hidden things and they've been found out, so but everyone can start. For this couple from Ukraine, at this time, it's almost dawn for you. It's getting to 4 a.m., for you. So thanks for staying up, or waking up sometime in the night to listen to us in the Ukraine. Begin that way, and then encourage each other to raise any issue of concern to them. And have this principle guiding your communication, that whatever either of us raises, the other person will consider important. That is a foolish or stupid question, that we're free to ask anything, we're free to raise any issue, and we both will commit ourselves to give the time to it. And you talked about developing your love. When you do these things, listen to each other and learn from each other. Don't be too quick to react to what your spouse says, but be willing to patiently listen to them and learn from what they're saying. Sometimes it may be the person just sharing their childhood, how they grew up, things they loved to do. And you might think, I'm not interested in childhood. You never know what you'll learn from that. My wife found out only 2 years ago about why I am not so close to dogs. It was something that happened when I was 7 years old. And we've been married 36 years going on to 37. She only found out after 34 years of marriage. And I did not even realize that was the effect on me from what had happened when I was 7 years old. But because we were actually in a learning situation, continuing education program for counselors, and when we had this role play, that came out. And she says, for the first time, I really understood. Now I know why we don't like getting close to dogs. As pets. I don't mean just standing around them. No, I was not bitten by a dog, but I lost 2 very close dogs that were like my buddies. And I did not even realize they have had that effect on me. But 2 years ago, she finds out, and now she's not worried, thinking I hate dogs, because she understands. You never know what you will find out by listening to each other. That's what I mean. So do these things, and as you learn from each other, and either of you suggest things that you could do to improve the relationship, to deepen your love, take them seriously. Don't just dismiss them and say, oh, my wife says this, or oh, my husband, is demanding this. A request is not a demand. You're sharing with each other what will improve the relationship. And that's what's important for us to learn from each other. Rather than pick what people say, what we see on TV or in a movie, and so when you do this for the woman, it's great. Not every woman who fancies being taken to a restaurant once a week, so she will feel loved. Some might prefer for you to go shopping with them. Some might prefer for you to give them your credit card so they'll go shopping. We're all different, and it's not every man who loves food. Some men would love something else, others something else. Learn from your partner, and as you come up with suggestions to improve your relationship, commit yourselves and actually put them into practice. That's how you will encourage each other to deepen your love. Thank you. Sammy, any more? You said you had a couple?
Yes, I have last one, which is coming from Virginia in the United States. And it says here, so for how long do you think it is important to forgive? I say this because at every opportune time, my husband will ask for forgiveness. As a sound believer of God, I have learned to forgive him many times, and I don't think I will ever stop forgiving him. He does things that I don't understand. Sometimes I feel it is spiritual, so I leave the spiritual part for my pastor and ask to handle it from the spiritual perspective. But physically, I also think that because I kept forgiving him, it takes advantage of that. What do I mean? My husband doesn't see anything wrong at all when he's emotionally connected to other people rather than me. And when I complain, it becomes a fight. And I have refused to shut down because I feel I am in charge of my marriage, and I will not allow his emotions and his frustration and words that I cannot repeat on this show to affect my marriage, because I gave my whole 100% into the marriage and I want to see it grow. How will you counsel me to remain strong and not to budge? Thank you.
So your question was on forgiveness, right, Sam? Is that correct? How long?
That's right, yes.
You want, Jesus' answer was 70 times 7. You can count up to 490 times for a particular offense. Well, on 491, then you can say, okay, I did it. But what, obviously, it means is that there isn't any limit. But what is more important? Well, let me share this quickly from Dr. Gary Chapman, whom many of you know, the author of the 5 Love Languages. And I think this is from his book, the Love Language of Forgiveness. And he says forgiveness is not a feeling; it is a commitment. It is a choice to show mercy, not to hold the offense up against the offender. Forgiveness is an expression of love. End quote. Now, just like you said, you feel that your husband is taking you for granted because you forgive him. What you haven't said, and what just listening to you, maybe you've done that but you didn't say so, but just listening to what was read to us, you haven't said that you have either found out or worked through why he feels he should be emotionally committed to other females, to the detriment of his commitment to you. That is the key issue. The key issue is not your forgiving him, because in a sense, if you just forgive him without dealing with what you are forgiving, then you are actually enabling the behavior as well. So why does he want to be committed to other females emotionally? Why is he doing so? The men I was talking about enjoying their attention, to make him think he's still desirable even though he's married? Or is it that he doesn't realize? Or is it that he doesn't care about your feelings? Or is it that he doesn't really know how to get himself out of those emotional relationships. At least he knows how he gets into them, so he should know how not to get into them if he knows how to. But all told, this is where it does help to work with somebody who will walk through with both of you, because he's not the only one who needs help. You also need help on how you can deal with the situation. And that's best if you're working together. Because I can tell you, you see, you already forgive him. I can say, oh, pray that he will change. Maybe you're already praying. But is he willing to talk about why this is happening? Maybe he doesn't even know why it happens. And he needs to understand not only that he needs help to overcome this, but that he has to. It's even healthy for he himself. So thank you all. Sammy, you have anything else?
No, that was the last question.
Okay. So thank you all very much for sharing, whether it's your Monday morning, for those in the Ukraine, Australia, New of you there, it's daytime already, or for those of you on this side, for whom it's nighttime, those out West Coast, just coming out to 6 p.m. We're grateful to all of you. Those in West Africa, for whom it's past midnight and heading to bed now. Some of you may have dozed off during the program. Those in Kenya, thank you so much. We're truly grateful to all of you. We thank God for your lives, and we want to close out with this. Since we were talking about what we think, let's close out with that, and then, we commit all of ourselves into God's hands for the coming week. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Not only as a man, as a woman thinks also in her heart, so is she. The power of a person's thoughts, whether subtle or made plain, can shape a destiny, the destiny of your marriage and the lives it touches. So the question for us to consider as we sign off, what are you feeding your mind? What are you allowing others plant into your mind? Brothers, sisters, mother, father, relatives, friends, movies, TV shows, and our own brooding all influence thoughts. Our thoughts guide our choices. Our choices determine our actions. Our actions map out the direction our lives take, which in turn shapes the course of our marriage journeys. So, my friend, arrest that thought and bring it under your control before it gives birth to an action that you will regret. And on a more positive note, fill your mind with thoughts that will cause you to do the right things and bring joy to your relationship and marriage.